Welcome to Upwell, the podcast. I'm Sarah, and this is my beautiful co-host, Katie. As fellow female entrepreneurs turned friends and now business partners, we are so happy you're here.
With every episode, it is our sole purpose to share authentic conversations to inspire your personal level up. Take our curiosity, add your best intentions, and flow with us in the Upwell. Hi, everybody. Welcome to Upwell, the podcast. I am Katie. I am on my own today. Miss Sarah is feeling a little under the weather, so she is at home resting today. So it's just me flying solo with this episode. I'm really excited to talk about today's topic. It is something that is very near and dear to me. It is even my nickname, Barefoot Katie. Being barefoot has become a huge part of my life, and it is something I started to do. I want to say it was either 2015 or 2016. I really shifted my mindset on my foot health, and I was having a lot of issues. And issues that I had been experiencing over a magnitude of years. So I decided to change things up a bit, and it has drastically changed so many things in my life. Now, this can become a very complex topic, so I'm going to try to keep it as general as possible for you, in this episode at least, so that you get a general understanding of what I mean when I say the foot to hip connection. So I'm going to talk about it from the foot perspective, where there is a whole other side of it from the hip perspective, but for today's episode, I'm solely focusing on the feet. So to start, I want to give a little bit of an anatomy lesson on the foot. What most people don't realize is that 25% of your bones in your body are in your foot. So just take a moment to think about that. 25% of the bones in your body are located just in your foot. That is huge. That is a huge, huge part of your body. Your feet are your foundation, the foundation for everything else up the chain. So if you think of a house has to have good foundation in order for it to be strong and sturdy and basically keep standing up over the years. So in addition to there being so many bones, 25% of the bones in your body, there's actually 26 bones in each foot. So I can give you the exact number. 26 bones in each foot, along with 19 muscles and tendons from the knees to the toes in each leg, as well as 33 joints that are held together by 107 ligaments. Think about that. That is a lot going on in your feet. And I think the feet are something that a lot of people take for granted, thinking that it's back pain, or my back hurts, or my neck hurts, or my shoulder hurts. But if you actually took the time to focus on your feet, you might realize that your back pain and your neck pain would go away. I'm going to get into that in a little bit. But first, I just wanted to give that little bit of anatomy lesson, that there is so much going on in the feet. And I think that's why I've become so passionate about it, because doing the experience of it on my own with my journey of going from very bad feet, bad ankles, plantar fasciitis, a multitude of other things that were working their way up my chain, and making a couple of big changes, but ultimately the changes that I think are going to give me a lot of longevity in life. So I want to explain to you what's called the hip to foot connection. So in terms of your body has a lot of joints. So I'm going to keep it pretty simple. So if you start at your feet, your ankles are a mobile joint. So if you think about how your ankle moves, it can move in a circle, it can move, it can point, it can flex, it can do a whole bunch of different things. It can go from side to side. So it is a mobile joint. Well, if you move up the chain of the body, it goes mobile, stable, mobile. So your stable joint is your knee, because your knee really only bends in one direction. It doesn't go in a circle. It doesn't go from side to side. And there's going to be a little bit of that movement, but if there's a lot of that movement, there's instability in the knee. The next joint then up the chain is the hips. The hips are also a mobile joint. So if you think about the first two mobile joints in the body being the ankles and the hips, they communicate with one another. They talk to one another, and if one is out of whack, the other is going to be out of whack. And I'm going to explain to you how that works. So your center of gravity is in your core or your hips. So for women, we carry our center of gravity lower in our pelvis. We're designed that way mostly because women's bodies are designed to give birth. So we carry our center of gravity in our hips, whereas men carry their center of gravity more in their sternal area. That is for lifting things, carrying things. That's how we were made by design. So think of that focus of where your center of gravity is in your body. So now every time you take a step, your core should activate. Your core should activate as you're moving to keep you upright. So if your core muscles don't activate when you're taking a step, that's going to wreak havoc on all parts of your body. So poor foot function will actually lead to poor core activation. So when the core is not activated, it's going to cause the muscles in your body to, quote, kind of go to sleep. If muscles aren't worked, they're going to get lazy and they're going to just stop functioning at their optimal level and they're going to go to sleep. So when the time comes to activate that muscle, it's going to be a lot harder for that muscle to activate if it hasn't been actively engaged over the course of time. So keeping muscles activated and keeping muscles communicating with your feet is going to be monumental in postural issues as well as back pain. And again, I'm going to get to that in a little bit. So to counteract sleeping muscles, neighboring muscles then have to kind of take on the job of stabilizing you, which then this causes a whole misfiring of stuff up and down the chain. This can lead to injuries, this can lead to pain, this can lead to lack of mobility, it can lead to function disorders. So really understanding how the body works without getting too in-depth and too technical here in today's episode. But that's kind of how it works. If your feet don't function properly, your core is not going to function properly. Your core not functioning properly can lead to a whole array of issues in the body. So when the body doesn't move how it's designed, you're unable to burn energy. You're needed to maintain a healthy weight or move or function or exercise. And you're likely to experience fatigue, mental cloudiness, weakened immunity, and once again, pain. So really understanding how important your feet are for your overall health is huge. Because aside from your vital organs, they play a major role in your livelihood. If you lose the function of your feet, I say this to my clients all the time, if you lose your feet, you lose your life as you know it. Aging does not mean that you're going to have to walk with a cane or be in a wheelchair. If you keep your feet healthy, starting now, they're going to do their job for you later in life and well into, your elderly years when, your lack of mobility does decrease. But if you continue to use it and you continue to improve it, your lack of mobility won't necessarily increase and you'll still be able to live a life you love and doing the things that you love to do. So next up, I want to give you a couple of tips or not necessarily tips, but a couple of exercises on how you can actually test your foot function. So there's a whole bunch of ways that you can go about doing this. But first up, start with your toes. So stand on a hard surface and shift your feet from side to side to kind of get your weight evenly distributed through both of your feet. Once you feel stabilized, try lifting all of your toes up off the ground and keeping the balls of your feet as well as your heels on the ground. See if you can lift all 10 toes up off the ground. And a lot of times we can lift our big toe and maybe the second toe, but I normally see other people can't lift their outside 3 toes up. So it's just the first 2 that they're able to lift up. So try focusing on lifting all 10 toes up off the ground. Reset your weight, and now this time I want you to just lift your big toe off the ground. See if you can keep all of the other 4 on the ground and just lift your big toe. And then the third exercise with the toes is keeping your big toe on the ground and lifting the other 4 up off the ground. This gives kind of a good indication of your mobility in that front part of your foot, to see how your toes move, how your toes function for you, and if they have the freedom as well as the muscle memory to do what they're ultimately supposed to do. So the next test that you can do is actually ankle mobility. So ankle mobility is a little bit trickier, and a lot of people have lost their ankle mobility due to the shoes they wear, which that is what I'm going to wrap up the episode with, is footwear, which might make a couple of people angry, but I'm going to talk about it anyway. So, but next up is ankle mobility. So your ankle joint, like I said at the beginning, is a mobile joint. So your knees are your stable joint. This should not be the other way around. Your knees are meant to be your stable joint. Your ankles are meant to be your mobile joint. So there's a simple way to measure your ankle function. And this again is done on a hard surface. Stand facing a wall, bring your toes to touch the wall, and then take your right foot and line up the tip of your big toe with the arch of your left foot. So does that make sense? So if you're thinking this is your foot and this is the wall, take your other toe, line it up with the arch of your foot. And then finally, I want you to bend your knees forward with your feet kind of staggered. Bend your knees forward and see if your knee can touch the wall. See if your knee can touch the wall. That's going to be a good indication of your ankle mobility. So there's been a huge argument in the fitness world of the, knees over toes argument, of your knees should never go over your toes. To me, that rule is kind of bullshit. If you have the ability to move your body in that range of motion without pain, without dysfunction, without feeling, any discomfort whatsoever, move your body in that range of motion. There's nothing preventing you, or nothing that's going to happen that's going to be detrimental to your health by having a wider range of motion. Now, there is something called the instability of a joint by having too much mobility and needing to work on stability. But again, that's a whole different topic that we're not going to talk about today. Most people across the board have a lack of mobility. So that's what we're going to focus on. So those are the first 2 exercises. Now, the third exercise that you can try to do to test your mobility in your feet is a single leg dynamic balancing. So if you practice yoga, usually towards the middle part of a yoga class, they'll do balancing. So that is tree pose, or dancer, or warrior 3, half moon. There's a bunch of different balancing exercises that you can do. I always just recommend to my clients, if you haven't practiced balancing in a long time, stand at a kitchen counter, put your fingertips just on the counter, lift one foot up off the ground, and then take your hands up off the counter and see if your body can find its center of gravity and your core can activate to keep you upright without falling over. And work up. Start with 10 seconds, go to 15, go to 20, go to 30, go to 40, go up to a minute. But do it on both feet. I will tell you, we all have one side that is better than the other. We just like we are left-handed or right-handed, we're also left-footed or right-footed. So this plays into your ability to balance yourself based on which foot that you're standing on. So now I have a fun game that I would like you to try. I call this toe pickups. So what I want you to do, just using your toes, I want you to start trying to pick up items off the ground. This is a great way to increase your foot strength as well as your toe mobility. And this exercise is exactly what it seems. Place a towel, a napkin, a rock, a marble, something relatively small, but something that start off with a bigger item like a towel or a paper towel, And using only your toes, try to pick up the item off the ground without bending down to grab it. Work on picking it up and then bending your knee and bringing your leg up to your upper body. Obviously, I'm not having you like do a heel stretch or anything like that, but bend your knee up as if you were sitting in a chair with that one leg, and then reaching down with your hand to grab the item. So if you start with bigger items like like I said, a paper towel or a regular towel, but then you can start to make them smaller. You can get a pencil, you can get a rock, you can get a marble, you can get a paper clip, you could get a bobby pin. You can really challenge yourself with this. And again, you're going to have one foot that's better than the other. This is across the board for everybody. But if you work on both sides, you can work on starting to even out your mobility in your feet. But again, just like working out, it has to be done. It's a practice that has to be done. Mobility training is, to me, just as important as cardio training or strength training. Mobility training is ultimately going to give you the ability to strength train and cardio train better. I'm going to say that again. Mobility training is going to give you the ability to strength train and cardio train better. So add mobility training into your routine. And this is just the tip of the iceberg with some exercises that you can do. I am actually working on creating some videos that will be posted to my YouTube channel, my personal YouTube channel, that will go into mobility for the lower body, which could be really helpful for a lot of people. So I'll share when I get all that rocking and rolling. I will share that information with you all. So last up, this is the part of the conversation that a lot of people, I think, might get a little fussy about, and that is footwear. So footwear is the leading contributor to poor foot health. Again, your footwear is the leading contributor to poor foot health. So, bunions that a lot of people have, they'll say, oh, well, my mom had bunions, my grandma had bunions. Yeah, I believe that. Your mom and your grandma and your grandpa and whoever, and your cousin and your uncle and your uncle's brother, sister's, husband probably had bunions too. But you can prevent yourself from having bunions. Bunions are not hereditary. However, my little disclaimer on this is that I do understand that your joint development and how your joints grow as you're growing up, that can be hereditary. So it's a little bit of a double-edged sword. So the bunion itself is not going to be hereditary. However, the gait that you get from your development could be hereditary. However, the rabbit hole in the tailspin that I didn't want to go down earlier, what you do as a child and how you're able to either allow or however you're allowing or preventing your body from developing properly can also play a part into how your development is and how your movement is as an adult. So again, a whole rabbit hole and a whole episode that I can do another time, but just think about the shoes that you put on your feet. I actually brought some shoes with me today because I wanted to show you the difference between a regular mass-produced shoe by one of the big companies, and then the difference between that and a barefoot shoe. So I have switched to barefoot shoes, and again, I did this many, many years ago. And my family members know that I love shoes. Like I love shoes. Or I should say I loved shoes. And I still love shoes. I just have a different viewpoint on them now because I love my body more. So I get it, girls. I get it. You like your heels. You like your, you like your pointy toes. You like your strappy stilettos and your, the cowboy boots and the everything. But ultimately, if you're constantly putting your feet into those, you're putting your feet into foot coffins, and it's doing nothing for you for longevity of your overall health. So to start, I'm going to show you what a normal, like just not mass produced, but kind of a shoe from one of the bigger companies. So this is, as you can see, it's an ASIC, super cute shoe. I loved the colors on it. I used to wear these all the time. But if you look at how narrow the toe gets. Look at how narrow that gets. Is this shoe shaped like a foot? My eyes and what I know now about the human body, no, this is not shaped like a foot. There's also other things about this shoe that are actually hurting you in the long run. So there's a pretty significant what's called a heel lift. So you can't see it per se, but you can feel it. So based on where the bottom of the shoe is here and the bottom here, that's a good 1.5 inches of a heel lift. And then you see the toe. And again, these shoes have been worn. So I understand that these shoes are worn in. But do you see the toe spring of this shoe? See how it's pointing your toes upward. Do your toes naturally point upward? No, they don't. So again, think about that when you're picking out your shoes. This shoe is ultimately causing your heel to lift and causing your toes to go up. And then it's pushing an arch support, usually right smack in the middle. Now your feet have 3 arches, and these 3 arches should naturally be strong enough to hold your body up. Again, this is not something that is hereditary. This is something that if you work, you can have a low arch and still have a strong arch. You can have a high arch and have a weak arch. So it's all a matter on how you work your body. So this is a typical shoe that most people wear. So again, if you're watching this, I know you can see it, but if you're listening to this, just think about a Nike or think about and I'm not calling these companies out. I'm just saying that these are the main ones. These are the popular shoes that most people wear. So I have switched to what is called a barefoot shoe. So as you can see, this is one of my favorite pairs of shoes, and I actually get complimented on these shoes so often. So these are, I believe the company is called Xero. It's Xero. And as you can see, the toe box is much wider on this shoe. So this is more shaped like a foot, as well as, you can't see it, but I can see it. There is no heel lift in this shoe. There is maybe about 1/2 inch of sole, which, okay, that's a whole lot different than, 1.5 inches back here and 1 inch up here. There's no arch in it. Well, I shouldn't say there's no arch. I think there's a tiny, tiny little bit of an arch. But the biggest thing for me is that there's no toe spring in the front. The toe is pretty flat. Again, these are worn. These are very worn. These are very well-loved shoes. So the toe is, again, curling up a little bit from when I take a step of my shoe, but for the most part, there's no added toe spring to these shoes. So completely different type of shoe. And then my absolute favorite pair of shoe that I wear often, these are called the Unshoes. This is one of my favorite companies, the Unshoe, and this is a wide toe box, as you can see on the sole of the shoe, a wide toe box. There's hardly anything to them. They're super flexible. You can roll them up into a ball. Super durable. I have had these for about, I want to say 3 years now, and the soles are holding up amazing. The wear and tear on them, unbelievable. So these are my favorite pair of shoes. But I understand, ladies, that you want a dressy shoe. I get it. I do. There are a multitude of companies now that are producing barefoot shoes that can still go with, a dress for a wedding or, dress up for work or this, that, and the other. You can do the sexy shoe without it being a 4-inch heel and a pointy toe, because the pointy toe, all it's going to do, it's going to squish your toes together, and then it's going to lift your heel up off the ground with your toes squished together, which then ultimately is causing you to tip your hips forward. So that is actually one of the biggest things that I noticed for myself, was that when I stopped wearing high heels, my anterior pelvic tilt, or what a lot of people like to call my cheerleader butt, because I was a cheerleader and I was, my hips were always tilted forward. My anterior pelvic tilt has corrected itself since I stopped wearing high heels. A lot of people have low back pain because they have an anterior pelvic tilt. Again, just something to think about. You can do what you want. I'm just letting you know that there is a great wealth of health that can come from getting your feet back on the ground, getting your feet back into the natural state that they are designed to be in. We should have wide toes, wide feet. Ladies, I get it. We don't want ugly feet, but to me, I'd rather have healthy feet than pretty feet. And so I do what I do now, and I still get a ton of compliments on my shoes. Even though I'm not in the 4-inch stilettos anymore, or the pointy-toed heels, or the strappy sandals, I really have taken the mindset that I can go and do the things I love without feeling the pain I was feeling in my body for so long. I had plantar fasciitis. I've sprained my one ankle 10 times. I actually just sprained it again not too long ago. But the instability that I had in my legs, as well as in my hips, as well as the pain I was having in my low back and my shoulders, because it just kept moving up the chain. I rarely have back pain now. My anterior pelvic tilt is corrected, and I haven't had a flare-up of plantar fasciitis in years. So really, think about it. Let me know your thoughts, because there is a lot that can go with, just changing your outlook on something. We've all been duped. We've all been duped that we need super hardcore, like the different arches to support our foot, and, the shoe needs to feel like we're walking on a cloud, and let your feet do what they're naturally supposed to do. Let your feet do the work. Keep them strong, keep them healthy, keep them moving, and you're really going to see a change in your overall health. You're going to be able to move better and do the exercises that you love. You're going to be able to get up and down off the ground as you age, which is a huge component to health overall, because a majority of elderly conditions come from a fall. Elderly injuries come from a fall. And so if you're able to keep your feet strong and to help prevent you and work on your balance from falling by just doing those simple exercises, think about how much longer you'll be able to live and how much longer you'll be able to enjoy your life. So I hope this episode has been useful to you, and you've taken away a few tips and tricks on how to improve your foot health. Again, this is just touching the surface on all things barefoot. We could get into grounding, but Sarah and I had already talked about grounding in episode 18 with our lessons in grounding. So if you want more on that aspect of it, you can listen to that episode. But until next time, take care of yourselves, take care of each other, and take care of the world around you. Bye, guys.